I wrote mine out because if I start talking without a script, we'll be here till 6 this evening. I used to do seminars at colleges and universities, so I would easily have an hour and a half. I could stretch it to 2 hours if I threw in some saucy stories. And so try to keep this down to time here. I grew up in the Methodist Church. I grew up in it before it was United Methodist. I attended Sunday school and church every Sunday. Does anyone remember back in I don't know how to say this, back in the old days, when we got attendance pins? You would get that first one, nice round thing, then the second one was like a little wreath that went around it, and then the third one hung from that, and we had all 12 of them. My family was one of 2 families in the church who were very competitive, who got a pin every year. First grade through senior in high school. We never missed church. In the 9th grade, I became a member of the adult choir. I was very involved in the UMYF group and worked my way through all the officer positions until I became president my senior year. I was a district and conference UMYF representative, and I got to attend an annual conference in Lake Junaluska. I played the organ during the evening services. They assumed that because I played the piano, I could play the organ, and they assumed wrong. Sunday evening services became more attended than ever because it was hysterical. Once a month, everybody got to pick out hymns. We would have a sing. And the challenge was who could pick out the one with the most sharps and flats, and watch Dean try to play it on the organ. So the church outside of school and my family was my life, and they were my other family. The church was ingrained in me. I loved our church, and I loved God. I knew I was different from a very young age, but I didn't figure out what that was until college, when I realized I was gay. My elementary and high school years were mostly a nightmare. I was very skinny. Had no interest in sports, was in the high school band, the chorus, the drama club. I put the goody and goody two-shoes. My escapism was old movies on TV, and I worshipped I Love Lucy. My best friend and I were bullied constantly. We were shoved in lockers, pushed around, beat up, pelted with rocks at the park, and various other tortures. When I finally realized who I was, it was like being set free for a while. I eventually realized that being gay was not compatible with being a Christian. The church that I grew up with, my family, and had now abandoned me and told me that I was a sinner doomed to hell, which became a constant battle within myself over the next 2 decades. I went through counseling. I experienced exorcism after exorcism. I was prayed over by 5 or 6 major evangelists of the time. I read every book I could find on overcoming homosexuality. Every prayer group I attended prayed over me. I attended one in New York City before at Radio City Music Hall. And you haven't been prayed over until you had 3 Rockettes in their leotard and their hair in curlers with their hands out, and you're casting out a demon of homosexuality. At one of those Bible studies, it was prophesied that I should leave my career. I was just at a point where I was up for a soap opera role. I had made the final cuts of 2 Broadway shows, and here they were telling me that my lifelong dream was no longer acceptable because I would be around gay people all the time. Being the naive young man that I was, and I took them at their word, and I left New York City, moved back home to Memphis, and saved my money, and ended up in Bible school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I became involved in my first ex-gay ministry while I was there. Then when I moved back to New York City after I graduated, I worked with another ex-gay ministry. I was their poster boy for change, a Bible student at a renowned Bible school overcoming homosexuality. They put me out everywhere they could. I spoke and ministered music at Exodus International, which was the international umbrella ministry of all the ex-gay ministries around the world. I served in leadership at these ministries. I spoke on the evils of the homosexual lifestyle and the hell that awaits those involved wherever they would send me. And having been an actor, I could scare the heck out of you with the hell stories. I eventually got married to a woman because that was the final step that would seal my victory. There was no victory. All of these years, I was living two completely different lives. I never once stopped having those feelings. They were not going away. No matter how many major evangelists who have these huge careers in TV ministries, how hard they prayed, it didn't seem to be working. So either they were shams, or they just didn't know how to pray, or they were wrong. But I persisted. After I got married, I became the creative arts director of one of the largest mega churches in the Manhattan area. I directed and rebuilt the choir. I led praise and worship. I created drama productions, worked on concerts. I worked 2 jobs. I did whatever I could to keep myself occupied so that I would not succumb to the other urge. Eventually, that conflict came to a climax and everything fell apart, ending up in divorce and that church asking me to leave and completely cutting me off and asking anybody who attended there not to have any association with me. So, I left the church, and at that point I left God. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. If I was wrong, why couldn't God fix it? Where was he in this struggle? Where was his comfort, his overcoming strength? Because I wasn't seeing any of it. No matter how much I prayed, and I prayed every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. I prayed when I got up, God, please let me get through this day without having this on my mind all day. I went to bed, please let me go to sleep and take it away while I'm sleeping. I was tired of fighting. I gave up. The inner pain of the conflict led me to drinking, drugs, and non-stop partying lifestyle. During the last few years, 10 years in New York City, I went through 3 high-paying corporate jobs. My lifestyle led to the ending of each one. And I had lost complete control. And I wanted to die, but I couldn't quite bring myself to kill myself. But if I embraced a more reckless lifestyle, I figured I could just die naturally, and that's not technically suicide. So that's what happened. 15 years ago, this past July, I was admitted into the hospital with PCP pneumonia, full-blown AIDS. I was told I'd be put on life support and that I would not come out of it. I had my friend contact my family. I gave him a power of attorney and told him that I was not to be revived under any circumstances. I went into a coma. I was in a coma for a month. My parents were there every day. Which I found out later. At the end of that period of the coma, I had a face-to-face with Jesus. I was surrounded by the whitest of white lights and a feeling of complete, utter peace. Never felt that. Never in my life. And he stood before me and he just said, "It's not your time, but it's your choice." Immediately my eyes opened and I saw my parents at the end of the bed. They had just, they were talking to the doctor. They had just called the funeral home in North Carolina to arrange for transportation and my burial. They called my siblings in Memphis to have them meet them there, and they were getting ready to pull the plug. And they turned around, they saw my eyes open, everyone went a little crazy, and they were told that I lay there, I couldn't communicate. I weighed 90 pounds, that place of peace. And then your parents look at you. And then they cry. And then you watch them cry. And then you lay there and you go, really? So I looked at them, Mom came and grabbed my hand, and I just told God, I said, I will give this a second chance. I expect you to make it a little easier this time. And so I laid there, they laid there. In retrospect, it was funny. Everyone's like watching, we're going to see that last breath. We're here for your last breath. And they're just staring at you. I mean, you spent a life on stage and you love being stared at. This was a little different. And after a number of hours, the doctors came in. They could tell us, my parents, they weren't sure what's happening. Mom had my hand, and she turned around and just looked at me straight in the eyes. She goes, I know exactly what's going on. And I was there for another month. And after a month, then the fun time started. They transferred me to Roosevelt Hospital, Kohler General Goldwater Hospital, Roosevelt Island, where all the people with no money are first then. I had nothing. My parents, I squandered every penny I had the last 6 months of my life. My parents thought I was dying, so they gave everything away. Fortunately, I have a sister who took some things which she said she was just keeping safe. And I was able to get a few things back from her when I came through. And they told my parents he will probably spend the rest of his life at the hospital. He'll never breathe on his own. It's most unlikely he'll walk. He'll never be able to build up the strength, and he has no immune system. Anything could kill him. And so this put me in this room, and I was by myself looking out the window at the Queensboro Bridge, which I used to cross every single day from Astoria, thinking, this was the deal I made? You keep me alive so I can spend the rest of my life in this bed and a room looking at everybody that I know, because I know they're going across that bridge every day. I said, this is my life. And I got angry again, and I started thinking, telling God, if this is it, just go ahead and take. Can I go back to option number one? And facing the prospect of spending most of my life in bed, I was moved into a room with 3 other guys. They had all been there 15 to 17 years, and I was horrified. After a few weeks, some friends came from my old church, and they wanted to pray for me. Oh, whatever. At this point, it never worked before. I can't see it happening now. And they did, and they left, and I felt nothing. And a few weeks later, about 2 weeks later, I woke up one night, my oxygen mask had fallen off, and I was frantically trying to find it, and I realized I was breathing. And the guy across started yelling, "He's breathing!" because he woke up. Then the nurse came in, and she, "Where's your oxygen?" "Oh my God! Praise Jesus, it's a miracle!" And she was out the hall yelling, "Praise Jesus." They called my doctor, who drove in from Long Island immediately. They took x-rays. They discovered my lungs were both completely functional. Within 2 or 3 weeks, I went from 90 pounds to 120 pounds. My doctor, who was Muslim, sat down next to me one day and he goes, "Mr. Hiatt, do you believe in God?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "That's good. I think that's where you'll find the rest of your answers." She goes, "Otherwise, this would not be happening." And that's the last thing she said to me. And before I went into a rehab program, I was out the following June. So 11 months in that hospital. I left and I was out with it with nothing. They assigned me to an HIV support organization who found me a new home. And I literally started my life over from scratch. I couldn't work full-time anymore, so I got a part-time job. And I had no idea where God was going to take me, but I decided just to let the way sweep me forward. And one thing, though, hit me right before I left the hospital, everything had changed, everything I'd been healed, completely healed physically, miraculously. I still had homosexual feelings. There was one day I was out on the edge of the island looking over at Manhattan, and I screamed to God, you could heal me from AIDS, but why can you not take away one problem, one feeling that constantly haunts me? And I felt that same voice that I heard so clearly in the hospital said, you are who I created you to be. So when I left the hospital, I left with the confidence in God that I never had before. I started speaking at support groups and other groups around Manhattan, and I didn't start going to church. I hadn't known about MCC, or I might have, but I was just sort of taking it on my own. I started reading the Bible again at home, and one day after one of those support groups, I decided I deserved a beer. I didn't think he'd mind, so I went to the bar, and that's Robby's story Robby told. Robby attended General Theological Episcopal Seminary in New York City, and we went to MCCLV. It's a wonderful church started by a Pentecostal minister who was gay. During that time there, we were married. We learned that God loved us as who we were, who He created us to be, and that's when I began speaking in universities and places. We eventually left. We felt led to move on. Since Robby had been attending a theological Episcopal seminary, he wanted to go to the Episcopal Church. We went a couple of times, and then I said, there is way too much chanting going on. All these little ritual things. I said, if the Holy Spirit is here, He is kept up in a box of tools somewhere up in town. I said, I cannot go here. So we backed off the Episcopal Church. There was a Methodist church right near our house, unwelcoming. He found a Methodist church about 30 minutes away from us. We went there. The pastor was an absolutely lovely woman. She had a statement of inclusion in the bulletin every Sunday on the website. But we eventually began to see that as much as she wanted to be opening and affirming, and everyone wasn't quite behind her yet. A few people who, as they began to realize we were a couple, people initially see us say, oh, are you guys brothers? And well, we'll play along with this for a while. Because you're afraid not to. Because you're afraid that, oh, you're not brothers. No. Few people realized we were a couple. They started backing away, and there was friendly demeanor changed to ignoring us. And one Sunday during the passing of the peace, I turned to one couple who looked at me and turned away. That moment brought back a rush of hate. And I told Robby, I said, that's it. We're not going to another church. Just quit looking. I said, we will be with God at home. We will be with God on our daily walk, in our daily life. Time passed, and relentless Robby finally found Sparta UMC. My thought was, do we really have to drive that far? That's going to mean getting up really early. And I had just gotten into my new routine, sleep late, wake up, coffee, Today Show coffee, Meet the Press coffee. And I was accustomed to that, and I liked it. We drove, it's technically it's an hour and 15 minutes, I can do it in 55. We came our first Sunday, and Pat was one of the first people we met, and it was like meeting your grandpa. Non-reference to age. who she introduced us to welcomed us enthusiastically. We were accepted by everyone here for who we were. We knew that. And since we've been coming here, we felt loved, we felt included, and we have felt blessed beyond words. This is not the case for many, many, many people who want to have God in their life and they're being kept from it. The purpose of the church is to minister the love of Christ to all, which includes everyone, no exceptions. Christianity has one goal and one goal only: to spread the love of Christ to all. Amen. Which means everyone, no exceptions. We do not get to pick who is included and excluded in the kingdom. We do not get to judge. We do not have the authority to condemn anyone for anything. We don't get to be God. But we get to be God's disciples, his walking expression of love on this earth, sharing that love with every single person we meet. Thank you.
I had a schedule that people are breaking.